lesson title this morning is called When You Don't Expect It, Things Go Back and Forth Between Terrific and Terrible. It comes from that movie called The Champ with Ricky Schroeder. I don't know, I saw it this summer up in Winthrop while hanging around one evening, and I thought the line was absolutely marvelous, and that a little bit shocking, but also marvelous. When you don't expect it, things go back and forth between terrific and terrible. And then I'll add this, and no matter how much you do about it, they still do. And that's the end of the lesson. Won't you remember this morning that all I'm doing is sharing myself, and that we're all ministers here. And I don't know how I got the authority to stand before you, but I happen to be doing that, so we'll play the game. I'll bet you have a sense oftentimes that life is not fair, don't you? Well, it isn't. And it ain't going to change. And we would hope that God would be able to do something about that, don't we? We would hope that we would be able to do some gyration, some internal movement, maybe some prayer work. Maybe if we changed our behavior or our attitude, or if we cleaned up our thinking, we would be able to get our lives so that it wouldn't be this mysterious, or it wouldn't be this unfair. And there's an attitude that we can have toward unfairness, which is bitterness. Or we can cop out, we can get out, we can drop out, we can hide, we can run away. But it still comes down to the simplicity that there's an awful lot of basic unfairness that lives here on earth, and our hope would be from our religion, from our spirituality, from our ministers, our gurus, our rabbis, our priests, our models, that they would be able to somehow take unfairness and break it in half so that all of it would come out fair. The unfairness shows in so many ways, doesn't it? Ethiopia certainly is an unfair situation. Why them and not me? Certainly South Africa is an unfair situation. It doesn't make any sense that blacks should be being so terribly mistreated down there, and it looks as if it's not only blacks, but it's also Indians. It really surprises me when I realize that the whole issue of unfairness with blacks has been around, and that not until 1947 did we allow our first blacks to play baseball. It seems so close sometimes, it's hard to believe that it's only 120 years that blacks have had their freedom here in our country, and yet to a degree, what kind of freedoms do they have? What kind of freedoms do women have? Isn't it hard to believe that only in 1920, was it, that we received the right to vote? Isn't that phenomenal? And prior to that time, so much unfairness was going on. Did you know that just as I left the state of Washington, their Supreme Court overturned a ruling that claims that women should be paid equal pay, overturned a ruling, equal paid for equal work. Unfair, unfair. Unfairness also shows, and I know you know this one well, that you do your best, don't you? You strive for success. You take a leap. You follow all of Knox's courageous messages. And you leap out there and you dangle, and indeed you do dangle. And it's too long, and the results don't come in, and you begin to awaken the realization that the reason you leapt was you hoped. Your expectation was that it would turn out terrific. The truth is that it dangles between terrible and terrific. Isn't it kind of overwhelming to you that you could so pride yourself on the belief in success and self-motivation and direction in your life and the right kind of thinking, and it still doesn't come through for you? Isn't there a pain inside of, gee, this is unfair. How come me and not them? I have some of those feelings, you know. I wonder why Terry Cole Whitaker is so popular, and me, I'm still hanging around in this. I mean, that's the truth. I happen to watch Shuli, you know, I watch him occasionally on a Sunday morning. He's celebrating his 30th, and I'm 15 years. It felt really good that I've only been hanging around for 15 years, and I've still got 15 years to build my crystal cathedral. You know, those things go on inside of me. Why? And I think I'm a pretty good person. I know a lot of you don't, but I really think I'm a pretty good person. There's that unfairness that enters in, that we as a church for 8 years have striven through all the right channels to build here on this property and to have something to suit our needs be evoluted, and we can't do it, and we're still struggling, and sometimes it looks like we're being mistreated, like we're being politically moved against. It's unfair. It's awfully unfair, too, isn't it, that you can provide a child with absolutely everything. Don't you know about it? Don't you know about it? You know, the right baby clothes. You read the right books. You fed them the right time, the feedings. You left sugar out of their diet. And they're still eating Twinkies. And now they're 16, and by Jove, one of them's on parole, another's on drugs. One of them isn't married and living with somebody. It's unfair. I should have put all of that. And this marriage I worked at for 28 years, and he walks out. And then I know there are a lot of you who have dieted over and over and over again. And if you're lucky like me, you live with this person who eats like a pig. And she's as thin as herself. Exquisite. And there you are. If you eat a piece of whole wheat bread, it shows right there. Damn unfair. Well, you're not the only ones. Want to hear a few good Bible stories? Did you know that Abraham, in the graciousness of his love and faith, took Lot up to a mountain? He said to Lot, "Look, Lot, look at this land. This is all of Israel. I love you like a brother. You may take whatever portion of the land you like." You know what portion he took? The best. Unfair. You know what Jacob did to Esau? I've told you that story a number of times. Jacob got Esau so that he was out in the field caring for the land, and got Esau, who was the firstborn and had the right to his father's estate because of it. They were twins, you know. And he got Esau so exhausted that when Esau came in and just wanted a little food, and Jacob was working in the kitchen, he looked at Esau and he said, "I'll give you food if you give me your birthright." And Esau, starved, said, "Take it." It's a dirty trick. Unfair. I know you're hoping for a punchline. I haven't got one. You know the story of Joseph. There was a fine, fine young man, and he was really a gracious young man, and his brothers resented him because he had a relationship with God and dared to talk about his relationship with God and his intuitions and his dreams. And so because they resented him, they sold him into slavery. And then Joseph overcomes that one, has the dignity to go down into Egypt, and they make a man out of himself, and some woman wants him. And because he won't give himself to the woman, she puts him in prison. How would you feel? Unfair. God, I've loved you. I've done it all right. That's the end of the lesson. No, there's another one. After Moses had led the people out of Israel, mind you, this great leader who had really done his spiritual work, he really had. He'd spent years in the wilderness. He had dared to kill somebody and come through that kind of thing. And then he leads them across that Red Sea scene, you know. You saw it in the Ten Commandments, that movie. He leads them across the Red Sea. Oh, this is a good one. And he gets over there, and when they get there, wouldn't you think the people would say, "Moses, you wonderful leader, how can we serve you?" No, they say, "Where's the bread?" Not "where's the beef," but "where's the bread?" They rebuked him. He was a bad leader. He was at fault for all of their woes. Unfair. There's probably no more difficult spiritual issue on earth than this one. When you don't expect it, things go back and forth between terrific and terrible. How can we justify, how can we live here on earth handling that absurdity? Well, the way we've tried to handle it, I've already mentioned. The way we've tried to handle it is we have gone to churches, we've gone to try to be saved by Jesus, and if you listen to the traditional Jesus people, they're giving a marvelous message, of course, but it's a message that lasts only for a while. And the message is, if you love Jesus and if you do your prayer work, you'll be saved from the terrible and you'll get the terrific. Now, how many of you bought it and got sold out? Any grunts? Just a few? Then I'll go home. And then we've gone to our positive thinking churches, and they said to us the next step in the message, which was clean up your thinking. And I'll let you have control. You can have control then. You can keep your son from dying. You can protect your children. Just get them turned on to right thinking, affirmations. Get rid of the bad, affirm the good. Then you can control your life. Then you can discern the results. And what you do then as a way of deeper refining beyond cleaning up the thinking is you take a look at your life and you look at whatever is around you and you come to the great conviction that what is there is because of me. And so then you do this great act of cleaning it all up, examining it. We get rid of husbands and wives and children and jobs and houses. We move here, we move there, maybe it's Australia, maybe it's the top of Mount Olympus, maybe it's in this temple, that church, and we're applying the principles. And then we're told next, direct your prayer thought. And this is all an attempt to control, okay? So the search is to try to control our lives. If we do the right things, somehow we can expect the terrific. If you take a leap into whole new work, maybe you can control the result of that. And then the next one they teach you is, they said it in Proverbs, with all your wisdom get understanding. So the next thing they teach you is, maybe if I get this lesson straight, if I could just understand this. All analytical, all screening, all scrutinizing with the brain, and doesn't the brain ever go tire? Tire, flat, I can't figure it out. Haven't you screamed that? I can't figure it out. Boy, are you at the edge and the brink of potential when you start saying that. Because you see, what we've done with most of our religious spiritual teachings is we have said we can mentally figure God out and the process out. Now, don't you ever forget that. Because the truth is, there is no control. The truth is, you are not in charge. The truth is, there is nothing to understand because you don't have it within you to understand. You don't. I don't. What if God doesn't operate this universe mentally, but spiritually? You know, what if the error in our religious traditions has been, and it's mostly Western errors, we've turned Christianity into a mentalization. If you go to the Eastern teachings, they dare to say God is unscrutable. God's process is inscrutable. You can't figure it out. Give yourself over to God. What if God isn't a mind? What if even Fillmore's attempt in unity teachings to try to say our mind works as God minds is some brief weakness in the structure and the teaching? When the real dignity, the real nobility, the real adulthood, the real maturity spiritually is for you to have the courage to say, I don't know, I can't figure it out, I'm not in charge, I'm not in control, you are the one responsible. I seek a way to give myself over to you. And I'd like to just give you 2 suggestions of how you might do that. When I look at the intricacies of a flower, have you recently? I behold the spirituality of God's process. It's beyond my understanding. Look at one this afternoon. Look at one. Go out to our new land and look at one out there this afternoon. Pick it, hold it in your hand and look at it and see if you can fathom how it ever got created. Have you looked at your own body lately? And the way it works, it is phenomenal. And that's God. When I feel the surge of music build me, as we did this morning with Praise God, when I feel that rush through my body, I know I'm not in control. I know there's some mystery, some awe that's way beyond me. And it has nothing to do with me. And when I can step into that moment, take myself out of this mind and put myself on the shelf and just emerge into life, then I can take care of the deal of unfairness. And the mystery of life goes between terrific and terrible. And I watch, I behold the mystery. When I touch the hair on a child's head, have you run your hand through your child's head recently? Have they let you? Oh, you know what I'm talking about. When I hold someone who has died in my arms, that's beyond terrific and terrible. There's no answer to that. There's no scrutinizing that. You don't say anything in that. When I watch a baby get born between a mother's legs, you don't say anything about that. You don't clean that up or shape it up or change it. When I pick up a little dog on the freeway and save him from being killed by a massive movement of cars, as I did yesterday afternoon after returning from a wedding, and hold them shaking in my arms and perceive that I was the one who picked it up. You don't figure that one out. Did I draw that through right thinking? What lesson is there in this? This is just a mystery. This is God's love. When I walk into a video store yesterday to return some films and see on the video screen there being played this very movie from which I got this lesson talk, do you think I imagine I created that? Oh, that has nothing to do with me. When I watch a blue heron fly in the sky at Winthrop and I gasp in awe, and then 5 minutes later hear a gunshot and never see the blue heron again, do you think I have any control or ability to shape, but only to drop my jaw in total elapsed time? The mystery, the awe. When I see a maimed Indian child on a street in Bombay and understand that the child is maimed so that it might have more to eat, do I have an answer? Do I want one? Doesn't the question, doesn't the search for the answer destroy the moment? The beauty, the awe, the wonder, the impossibility? And when I stand aghast at the Taj Mahal and it keeps reaping its memory waves through me, moment after moment, do I understand? Did the Shah who built it understand? In order for us to get beyond the terrible and the terrific, we must really become as little children. How trite, how trite, how trite. But what's a child lost that you and I have gained? A mind that discerns, that figures out why my grandchild should act as he does. The child doesn't. The child just stands aghast. And what does that create? That creates a loose human being. A loose human being. It doesn't mean that the mind goes, because my mind's functioning fine here this morning. It's brought me here. It's opening my mouth. It's speaking my words. But behind my mind is a loose person who is willing to stand in awe, watching my husband die on a tennis court. Reshape it. Redesign it. Clean me up so that it won't happen again. Not for me, folks. Maybe for you, but not for me. I want to stand with mouth open, aghast, before God's mystery, terrific or terrible. I love it all. I love it all. And the other thing I might offer to you is that it says to us through people like Moses and Abraham and Jacob and Joseph, all the greats of the Bible, there were a few women in there, but not many. That's a joke. It says that those people sought God in prayer. They sought God in prayer, and I would love to offer this to you. You know, early on in the Bible, I think this is fascinating, it says that God came of his own accord to the people. Well, you know, that doesn't happen much anymore. It doesn't happen to you much anymore, that God comes and talks to you. It seems that something's happened because societally we've so removed ourselves, and there's so little of this kind of precious teaching around, that we really do have to prepare ourselves to hear God. I'm sorry. But it's almost like what we know about the growth of children. We know that children hear God until about the age of 8, and then it closes over. And then they must someday, through frustration, despair, desperation, or death, seek to hear it again. Well, that's the adult search to hear it again. And all the greats did it. They searched for God. And it says that Moses cried to the Lord when the people were moving against him because they had run out of food. And it says later on in the passage that he cried to the Lord when they said to him, "What shall we drink?" And it says later on that people who were undelivered from Israel kept asking him, "Why are we here? Why are we here?" And so Moses went to God and he said, "Why am I here?" He cried out to the Lord. Now look, folks, there's something that's a little difficult with all of us here in this room because, you know, we're awfully smart. We're not simple peasants from down south. You're smart, you got educated, you're refined, you live just outside San Francisco, most of you making pretty good basic salary. And you got a little bit too smart because you have reached that wonderful point in life where you won't anymore go and say to God, "Why?" Or where you won't go and cry out to the Lord and ask. So when your life's going between terrific and terrible, not only must we stand in awe, but we also must go within and ask. Cry out to the Lord. Become humble. Do you know how to do it? Do you know that's why they talk about putting your knee down? That's humility. Have you done it lately? I'll do it for you. Just watch what happens when you do this. Feel it. Are you too big for that? Have you grown too up for that? Do you know how to kneel at your bed? Do you know how to say to your wife or your mate, "You know, this thing is too big for me. There aren't any usual answers. I need to go to the Lord in prayer"? Did you get too big for that? Did you get too smart, too unity, too untraditional? Your minister does that. I'm your minister. Do you know what I do in times of crisis? Me? The big one? I feel that desperation hanging around, and I'm up mornings. And I'm there talking to God. How do I talk? Like the Southern Baptists? No. That's not my tradition. I go in and I sit on my couch and I sit there alone. And I let run through my head all the debris that's going on. And then I start asking questions. I say, "God, just a little guidance, please. And I brought this morning. I don't show this to many people, but this is my God book. This is where my listening comes through. And you can see, I don't have all that easy a time of it. See? But this is where God speaks to me, and for me it's in words. But I give him all the issues of my life. And remember, I have a doctorate degree. I'm very smart, but not too smart for this. And what do? Do I get the answer like that? Do I have the answer in my head and I want him to deliver it like that? No, I'm just an open being there for God to shed light through. A year ago, after searching and struggling to try to buy a boat, something came through this here and said, no boat. This summer I struggled and searched to try to purchase more land up in Winthrop. And the message came loud and clear. Don't push. I'll bring this to a close quickly. I'm begging you this morning, I am begging you to use the tools of your trade, of your spiritual trade. I'm asking you to stand in awe. That's an every moment experience. I'm also asking you to go to God in guidance through prayer and to humble yourself. I'm begging you to do that. I'm begging you to do that as families. I'm begging you to do that as friends. I'm asking you not to leave God out, to not be so intellectual you don't bother. And what do you do when you're sitting around waiting for an answer, and sometimes it takes weeks and months, but you learn to wait? You become like my little dog, Cindy, whom I watch chase minnows all summer long. Watch a dog watch the world some morning at sunrise. Watch the total presence just there. And what you see is this nose that sniffs alive. That's you. That's got to be you inside, listening for guidance. That's how Abraham did it, Joseph did it, Moses did it. Oh, pay attention, folks. You vitally watch for everything. And you're willing to watch in the water for those minnows to go by hour after hour after hour after hour, and you may never catch one. It never may be the right one, but you watch, you watch, you watch until there's one that says, that's it. That's listening. That's refinement. Such an art. And then the end of it is a wonderful little account that was given to me by the woman who opened up this morning, a lay minister who gave a lesson out in Antioch this summer, and she closed her lesson the way I'm going to close it. It's nice to be able to take from my lay ministers as they have taken from me. She told about receiving a poster one day that was one she hadn't ordered, and she was really upset when the one she'd ordered didn't come through. But the one that came through had these words at the bottom of it: to believe in God is to know that all the rules are fair and that there will be many wonderful surprises.